From Argentina down to South Australia, welcome to our next speaker, Andrew McIlwain. He's the Managing Director of Investigator Resources. Very, as they said recently, eye-watering grades of silver at their Paris project. ASX code, ladies and gentlemen, IVR. Andrew McIlwain, take it away.
Oh, good afternoon, Kerry, and thank you very much for that introduction. There's not much more to say, actually, but welcome to the listeners today and the audience. And I'll talk to you today about Paris, which is our silver project in Australia, certainly the highest grade silver project in Australia, and fortunately the only silver story to be presented today at the Virtual Gold Conference. So I'll just move on to our normal disclaimer, which people would normally flick across very quickly, but it is available on our website. But I'd like to point out Mr. Jason Murray, who we refer to as our competent person, and I'll talk a little bit about the depth of experience that we have in Investigator. But Jason's been involved with the Paris Silver Project since mid-2012, and obviously is a keeper of all that technical knowledge and is a great support to me in taking this project forward. Assisting him is Andrew Oleski. Andrew has been involved in the project for a few months longer than Jason, so both of them with more than 8 years experience on the Paris project. As Kerry introduced, IVR is listed on the ASX. It is an absolute leverage to the silver price, and you can see that in the graph on the right, where the silver price in US dollars is in grey here, and the Investigator share price is in blue. Matched the movement in the US price until about the middle of this year. And then once we got into our drill program in South Australia, we've actually started to move ahead of the silver price in US dollars. 100% owned project in South Australia. We have 42 million ounces of silver and 55,000 tonnes of lead in a JORC compliant resource. What does that mean to people who really sort of only understand the gold industry? The silver gold ratio at the moment is about 70 to 1. So this is a 500,000 ounce gold equivalent project at around about 2 grams, all within 120 metres of the surface. If it was within 100 kilometres of Kalgoorlie and a gold project, it would have been mined a long time ago. I'll talk about also the regional exploration potential that we have within 5 kilometres of the Paris Silver Project and the program that we're starting to drill out there in December. Most of our tenements are in South Australia. We do have a small tenement in Tasmania. I mentioned before the experience of the management, but certainly a very experienced and capable board that I'll talk about individually. All the detail here, 1.13 billion shares out. Importantly, we have 179 million options. Now, they're listed options, 3.5 cent exercise price. They're all in the money, and currently option holders are exercising on a daily basis. They expire at the end of this year, so the 31st of December. If 179 million options are exercised, there's an extra $6-point-something million cash that comes into our coffers by the end of the year. 31 million unlisted options, which are generally associated with staff. The performance rights are mine. They're both time and performance vesting. You can see the share price around about 5.9 cents, come off here with all of the global news in the last couple of days. A 12-month price range, which plummeted here to 0.8 in the start of the COVID era, and then up to more recently 6.9 cents. A couple of critical points here. In late July, the silver price started to move. At the start of August, we did a placement at 3 cents. We raised $8 million. Our share price almost overnight went to nearly twice the placement price. We've held up since then. September saw the start of our drilling program in South Australia. November saw the first news that came out on the 5th of November, which and I'll refer to, and happy to say I describe them as eye-watering silver results, and I'll show you some detail in a minute. Merian Global Investors are our largest shareholder with over 17%. They came in and took over half the placement in August. Subsequently, they've exercised 14 million options. So they are true believers in our silver story, and they're great followers. And you can see about 36% of the stock is held by the top 20. The board, Kevin Wilson and Andrew Shearer, are both geologists by background. Kevin would be well known to, and Andrew as well, to most listeners. They've been in the business in financial circles, broking and technical for all of their careers. I'm a mining engineer by background and have spent probably the last 20 of my 40 years more in the corporate and M&A space. So across the board, we've got exploration covered. We have financing, project development, operations covered in our board. The Paris Silver Project sits about 5.5 hours drive from Adelaide. So here's Adelaide on this map, the air highway across to Western Australia, and we're about 90 minutes drive north of Kimber. So sealed road all the way to here, and then 90 minutes on a dirt road to Paris. Discovered in 2011, and each second year there had been a resource upgrade. So a maiden resource in 2013, a resource upgrade in 2015, again in 2017, and we will have another resource upgrade in 2021 following the drill program that's underway at the moment. Importantly, the shift here, and I'll refer to this a couple of times, is the grade improved from the original grade here, 110 to 113. It did so even though the cutoff grade was increased from 30 to 50. Again, in the 2017 resource, the grade improved from 113 to 139. But importantly, the indicated component of that resource has a grade of 163. So each time drilling's been done, confidence has been improved, the grade has increased. Relatively flat-lying, shallow ore body. There's about 10 million tonnes in a conceptual pit to 120 metres. Scoping study was refreshed at the start of this year. Met test work has been done. Flowsheet design is laid out. Geotech work for the pit has also been done. Metallurgically, the silver leach recoveries range between 65 and 89% with a resource average of 74. We're doing some further work in the PFS study now, focusing on the material that was delivering only 65%. That's where we think we can get our best bang for our buck. If we can lift the metallurgical recovery of that component of the resource, then it all goes simply to the bottom line. We have some other tenements in South Australia that I'll talk about a little later, but our key focus here is Paris. The infill programming was committed to after the capital raising, but as a consequence of the evaluation we'd done, assuming that silver price was going to be $30 Australian. That's really a key metric for us. We had the confidence that the project would be economic at $30 Aussie, so we pushed forward to complete the PFS, and there's a range of components of that we're undertaking at the moment. Primary in that is the drill program that we started in September. We committed initially to 15,000 metres of RC drilling. The success of those holes we saw along the way allowed us to expand that to a 20,000 metre RC program. We'll also be doing about 700 metres of diamond drilling. So at the moment, and I'll show you a photo soon, that we're drilling this Paris resource. This grey outline is the conceptual pit. The blue material here is the inferred resource, and the red material here is the indicated resource. So the geological area that we have higher level of confidence in. Importantly, you can see here higher density of drilling, which allows us to bring it into an indicated resource category. The yellow dots are what we're drilling at the moment, and most of this is being completed. We're infilling the blues to convert them to red, so that we actually end up with much larger indicated component. And as I mentioned before, what we're chasing is this higher grade when we're able to improve our confidence of the resource. We have every expectation we'll see an uplift, and I've talked about encouraging early results. I described them in early November as eye-watering. On Tuesday this week, we actually announced further results from the drilling at Paris, and they complement what we saw earlier. Just go back, we call these are lines of drilling through here. The 2016 program was between line 6 and line 8. We've been drilling, started on line 8, line 8.25, and this is a section of line 8.25, and this is what we reported to the ASX finally on Tuesday. Again, some really eye-watering results, and importantly what we're seeing is quite a high grade sitting here on this dolomite contact at the bottom. Appreciate this is just one section of a conceptual pit that's over a kilometre long, 600 metres wide, but grades in here, 7 metres at 251, including a metre at over 1,000 grams. We have Tuesday result we announced here, 25 metres at 258 with 13 metres at 443. That's round about a 5 gram gold equivalent intersection. So if you want to know what the value is in those, if you can think about in gold equivalents, these are all 700 grams as a 10 gram gold equivalent intersection. So great intersections. As I said, we keep seeing this high grade across this, in this breccia that sits above the dolomite contact. And certainly we've been able to predict better continuity of grade, and that's going to bode very well for when we start to do the resource estimation work in early 2021. So the early results we saw, and I've flipped the yellow dots to black, these were the ones we completed. We decided to expand the program by about another 30%. We added 5,000 metres. And the objective there is to start to really step out this resource. Most of the blue is done, and in fact, nearly all of the pink is done. We've drilled to date 19,000 of the 20,000 metres. So that will be finished, I expect, by the end of next week. And importantly down here, we're going to start pushing this resource out into an area where there was no or very limited drilling previously. So we're going to expect to see an increase in tonnes, as I said, expect an increase in grade. A host of samples are in the laboratory and we're starting to report on those now, but we've still got a swag of results that will come out of this program, and we'll see news flow from this drill program through until, I expect, probably February next year, which is when we cut off and start doing the resource estimation. The PFS plan that we embarked on, we've engaged Mincor here in Melbourne, well known to many people for their quite innovative and quite economic approach to undertaking project development, but they've been appointed as our study manager. We have confirmatory MET test work underway in the ALS laboratory in Tasmania, and as I said, that's focused on trying to move or find an opportunity to lift that 65% recovery material to a higher level. Through the PFS, we'll optimise the flow sheet, end up with a process plant design. Mincor will also put together the design for power, water, access and camp. I'll show you a photo. It's not challenged by community, this project. It's in the middle of South Australia. We'll do the resource estimation in early 2021 and lead through to the economic evaluation, and we'll announce the PFS by the middle of next year. Picture tells 1,000 words, and I describe this as such a beautiful thing. Sitting in the middle of South Australia, this is a photo from our drone looking from south to north. You can see these lines of drilling that we've been undertaking here. This is closing these resource gaps or the drill centres down to 25 metres, which will improve our geological confidence. You can get to understand the expanse of the open pit here from line 0 going up to line 10 to the north. But look, importantly, I've been involved in projects in different parts of the world that have been subject to typhoon events. I've been involved in projects where we've had to move community housing to access the resource. There are none of these challenges at Paris. It's relatively, certainly uninhabited land. We have great relationship here with the traditional owners. There's no pastoral value to this land. There's certainly no watershed or waterway issues. So we don't anticipate any of those sort of problems you might have on the eastern seaboard in trying to get a project away. Similarly, we've done a fair bit of work already on the environmental aspect of it with flora and fauna surveys, and we're actually mapping out a plan now that will lead into our application for a mining lease next year if we want to push forward. So we will have done all that baseline or homework getting ready to see this project permitted next year. Regionally, we have some great opportunities, and it's only been for the want of I suppose not having the money in the past to reach out to these. As I said, in August, we raised $8 million, 4 of which is dedicated to the PFS, but it's given us a great runway to move straight from PFS to DFS if we choose to do so. But importantly, it allows us to tackle some of these regional exploration opportunities. This is our Petalumbo tenement outlined here. Paris sits here in the centre. This is the conceptual pit outline that I've referred to. You can see some of the historical drilling around it. Importantly, this line of holes across here was constrained previously by a heritage clearance issue to the north. And it wasn't that there was a problem, it was just that it was never actually tackled. And We've gone back and we have all of this area now cleared with heritage clearance, so we're able to drill in here. And importantly, Argos is a real target for us. So there's seven exploration targets here within 5 kilometres. We'll have a second rig coming towards the end of November. When we finish, in fact, the drilling here in Paris this month, we'll move the big rig that we're currently using out here to one of the Argos areas, and a second drill rig, RC drill rig, will come in and tackle some of these regional site targets. 6,000 metres of drilling regionally in conjunction with the infill drilling. Nearly 30,000 metres will be drilled here in Paris this year. Largest exploration program in South Australia being undertaken in 2020. And a great credit to the team on site who've done so without incident. Helen's an exciting target for us here. It's had the highest ever rock chip sample of silver in the region. Paris is undercover, so this is interesting that we've been able to pick up 110 gram rock chip here historically. There was a hole drilled at Helen, which showed 7 metres at 531 grams of silver near the bottom of the hole, but was never ever followed up for want of funding at the time. So we'll be back there chasing Helen by the end, before the end of the year. And then Argos is interesting for us because this is untouched. A gravity trend, magnetic structure, a long strike or a long trend from Paris, and we'll drill over 3,000 metres of the program there out at Argos. So lots of news flow coming out of 20,000 metres of infill drilling in Paris, and then followed up by this regional drilling over the next, and we will see results from these coming through until February, March next year. Other tenements in South Australia, as I sort of talked about, our Paris or Petalumbo tenement here to the east. We're just starting to work up our program for Morgans. It has some structural similarity to Paris. It's had little work done on it. Tenements Manini Dam silver project sits just in underneath us here, so we're in a good district, and I expect that we'll be doing some drilling on next year. The Stuart Shelf tenements here are subject to an earn-in with DGO Gold now. We announced that a couple of months ago, where DGO will spend up to $6.3 million over 3 years to earn 35% of this. We drilled there earlier in conjunction with Oz Minerals, a very deep IOCG target. We still haven't answered all those questions, but we've de-risked our position there with DGO spending the money, doing the work, and as I said, if they're successful, we'll end up with 25% of something. Opportunistically, we picked up some tenements, or sorry, I should say we applied for some tenements. We're one of 2 companies that have applied for this area. The area was vacant. Western Areas announced the nickel discovery here to the west, and we've picked this ground up, and I suppose it's watch this space. If we're allocated those tenements, we'll work up a plan for those. So quick summary, as I said a couple of times, we're pinpoint exposure to the silver price movements. Obviously off a little bit earlier this week, but as I said, we're always sitting in an environment where $30 Aussie is good for us. But it's the highest primary undeveloped silver project in Australia. As I said, we are a clear differential to other silver projects by almost a factor of 2 and 3 on our grade. We're working through a PFS that's going to be delivered in the first half of next year. I've talked about the board and the management team and the experience and the skill set. So it's not our first rodeo. We've done this before, and as I said, this is a great project to be involved in. Regional exploration targets, again, watch this space. We've got plenty of news coming out of not only Paris, but regionally. And we have enough cash to do everything we've got planned in the future. And it's nearly $10 million cash on hand at the moment, and potentially another 6 or more coming in from the exercise of options by the end of this year. So there's Paris in Investigator in a snapshot, Paris in some detail. As I said, thank you, Kerry, and the audience today for allowing me to talk about, as I said, the only silver project today, but the best one in Australia.
Well, certainly want to thank you for that, Andrew. We've only got 30 seconds left. I think that it is eye-watering grades. I love the way the comparison was to gold. You must be delighted with the drill program. And I just want to congratulate you on the amount of work that has been done to prove up this resource and get it forward, all the things that are happening at the moment.
Oh, thank you very much, Kerry. And I've got to think of another word because I think we're going to have some better grades to come.
More grades to come, more news flow. Andrew, you'll be on the Zoom networking meeting this evening. So ladies and gentlemen, if you've got questions, the time to ask them is at the Zoom networking from 5:30 to 6:30 this evening. For the time being, Andrew McIlwain, thanks for joining us at the Virtual Gold Conference today.
Thanks, Kerry, and good afternoon to everyone.